This is the Moshpit Backstage podcast for punk, metal and rock interviews and segments.
And now we have an interview with Sam from Caligula's Horse. How's it going, Sam?
Hey, it's going good, man. How are you?
I'm really good.
Guitarist for Caligula's Horse. You guys will be touring Australia in August. You're going to be playing at Melbourne at the Howler on the 16th. Now, after that, you're going to be playing a European tour, which I want to talk about briefly first.
Sure.
This is your first European tour. What are you guys doing to prepare for it?
No, it's actually our third European tour.
Really?
But it'll be our first headline tour. Yeah.
Oh, right. So, yeah, it's first...
Quite a big difference.
Yeah, first headline European tour. What are you guys doing to prepare for that?
Well, I mean, the thing is that the music itself isn't something that's too difficult for us to prepare for. We just rehearse as normal, make sure our gears work and all that kind of stuff. But the big thing is, realizing that you're going to live on a tour bus with a bunch of stinky dudes for 35 days. And, it's one of these things that homesickness and all those kind of concerns obviously take over at some point or another. But, I mean, other than that, just, we try and kind of stay healthy. We try and stay fit. These are the kind of things, the kind of routines that we try and plan ahead before we go to places like Europe. It sort of keeps you alive when you're on the road like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to be playing with I Built the Skies and Circles for most of those dates. How do you go about getting together with those guys for this tour?
So they're all really good friends of ours, just through the Australian scene, the people that we've gigged with in the past, toured with in the past. And it was funny, we were sort of talking about supports. We considered, inevitably just which European bands you'd choose to support on a, European headline tour. But we sort of kept coming back to this idea of putting together a package which was, we called it an Australian invasion. Like it was going to be this big kind of package that was sold on the idea of it being a couple of the bands that would normally tour together in Australia but would never play together in Europe. And the novelty was just too much to pass up, It seemed like such a good idea, so here we are.
Yeah, no, that's the part I really love about this. The fact that it's not... Because, music in general is very global these days, but I feel like Australia, to a large extent, often has kind of a unique... For whatever reason, a little bit of a unique flair on a bunch of things. And, it's great to see a bunch of sort of our style of kind of heavy prog go over there and show them how it's done. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, if nothing else, we all sound pretty different, I think. We're a fairly diverse bunch of Aussie bands. There's definitely a kind of shared quality to us, whether it's just the irreverence or the, boisterousness. I don't even know. There's got to be some kind of national identity that we share, surely.
Now, moving back to your Australian shows, or I guess sort of shows more generally, this is a question I ask whenever I'm interviewing a band about a live gig or some tour of some sort. When you're on stage, what is it you're aiming to do? What is it you're doing on stage?
Well, I mean, from the very beginning with Caligula's Horse, we're obviously a band that take our music very seriously. It's fairly studious, it's fairly technical at times. But from the very beginning, we were in agreement that it needed to be as much a matter of kind of communicating energy and expressivity as it was about the technique. So we try and create something that's really kind of energetic, really draws the audience in, that demands a little bit of a kind of back and forth between the audience and us, like a feedback loop. So for us, it's very much as much about transferring that energy as it is about nailing the songs, even though, we obviously wouldn't surpass the latter for the former. But yeah, that's sort of our rationale, I think. It's a pretty good summary of it.
Very interesting. So when I last saw you guys, something, interesting happened. Something that I noted, I actually put it in a note that I kept for if I happen to interview you guys subsequently. You had an encore, which was kind of fascinating to me because you didn't have that previously. Talk a little bit about why you decided to add it and what the discussion was like in the band when deciding to do that.
So which encore particularly? Sorry, there's so many Australian shows.
It would have been the Melbourne show.
The last one, 12 Ninja one, a headline tour before that.
Yeah, I don't
think we did an encore there.
No, yeah, there was definitely an encore. Jim got on and did the spoken word track, and then you guys came back on stage.
Yeah, no, sure. So like, there's just a blur of so many shows that it could be. It's done different encores of many of them. Yeah, so Inertia and the Weapon of the Wall is actually it's a track off of In Contact, which is a spoken word, but it's a spoken word that in the studio I sort of dressed up with a bunch of weird sounds and things, and we decided that the best way to convey that live wasn't to do it necessarily with a kind of backing track or really powerful, to do like a fake encore. The rest of us leave, Jim stays on, and we kind of use the ramp up at the end of that track to really push into the songs that we ended up using for the encore, using it as kind of like a build-in tension before we kind of explode back into it. It was a bit of a novel idea, I suppose. We probably won't do that kind of thing again to keep it fresh, but it definitely seemed to work pretty well on that tour for sure.
Yeah, I was really interested by that. As we're talking about In Contact, you sort of mentioned around its release that it might be a little bit more divisive than the previous album. What's it like? Have you seen a divisiveness? What have you heard?
Well, I mean, like, reviews and things were fantastic. Like, I remember mentioning that it was a fairly divisive album, I think, fairly early in the press cycle. But what I meant by that isn't that it was going to be something that sort of polarizes people necessarily, just that it was going to be something that requires a little bit more from the listener to really, become immersed in. I mean, what we've seen since it's been released has been amazing. I mean, it's, we often reflect on how these different albums seem to have translated, and we sort of see Bloom, the album before this, as a bit of a breakout for us. We saw, crowd numbers rise after it, but within Contact, we've seen something even greater. Like, Jim sent me a video the other day of a Twitch streamer who was doing, custom Guitar Hero runs for In Contact stuff for like ages, and people were loving it and giving donations. Like, we've had these sort of realizations since In Contact that it seems to be spreading a little bit further, even if the album is a more complicated and more kind of demanding listen. So it's generally been, I would say, very positive for the most part.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
One last question before we let you go.
Sure.
I had a chat with Jim about regarding the album when it came out. I sort of wanted to get your words about sort of how you approached the album and what was it like writing it.
Well, as with all Caligula Source albums, we usually have a little bit. This is Jim and I collaborating to write the music. We usually have a bit of a sort of process whereby we discuss what it is that we want to achieve with the album. We were following up Bloom, which is a fairly sort of short, sharp, to the point kind of album. We wanted to make something that really expressed the severity of dynamics that we could possibly have in this band, the loudest, the softest, the biggest, the smallest, all of those kind of binaries that, you often focus on certain elements of them, but rarely are you able to span them both. That was pretty much the first idea behind the album. When we started creating it, it was really just a matter of, kind of going back through and auditing whether we were getting closer to that, whether we needed to create stuff heavier, lighter, whether we could fill in the shade, whether it was too sort of directed towards a single mood, all of those kind of questions. Interestingly enough, one of the first things we wrote was, well, at least a small part of the song Graves, which is 16-minute track that closes the album. So we sort of bit it off from the very beginning, and we just kind of dealt with what we were obviously heading towards, which was a very expansive and very complicated album. It was a hard process, but honestly, I couldn't be happy with it. I love the album.
That's really good to hear. Sam, thank you so much for talking to me. Caligula's Horse will be playing in Melbourne on the 16th, and I don't know if anyone happens to be over there. They'll be playing in Europe later in the year. Sam, thank you so much for talking to me. Really look forward to see you guys.
No problem, Ben. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Moshpit Backstage podcast. You can subscribe to us on iTunes and Omni. To find out more about the show, go to www.syn.org.au/moshpit. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/moshpitonsin and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at moshpitsin. The regular Moshpit radio show broadcasts punk, rock and metal tunes and interviews every Thursday nights on SYN 9.7 on FM and digital radios. Listeners outside of Melbourne, Australia can stream SYN 9.7 online at www.syn.org.au. Thanks to Vintage Ruin for the music.
Hi, this is Tomato from Flashgun Apocalypse.
Hi, I'm Enid from Girls School.
I am Phoebe Pinnock from Heaven the Axe.
Hey, this is Gary Olney of the Misfits.
Hey, this is Kat Sproul from Horizon's Edge, and you're listening to the Moshpit on SYN FM.
Hi, this is Einar from Leopard.
Hi, I'm Virginia Lilly from the band Lily.
This is Raul from 1349.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Ali from Zebrahead.
Hey, everybody, this is Charlie Benante with Anthrax, and you are listening to the Moshpit on SYN.